I always then give the analogy of using a tennis ball to demonstrate the difference between mentoring and coaching. So mentoring is you'll throw the tennis ball to me and I'll give you my perfectly formed tennis ball that I've used before and I'll give that to you. Coaching for me is that you're going to bounce that tennis ball off me as many times as it takes for you to find the answer.
So now there's this creating this culture and internal skill set of coaching, which I love. I guess that creates a kind of rich soil for a culture of high performance, sort of scaling that high performance. Wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't talk about AI. What role does technology play in this? Because you talked about the HR talent team's role in it. How about AI? What have you seen in the market?
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Think about the most impactful conversations that you've ever had in your life. The ones that have really changed your course. I bet they weren't sitting in meeting room 3, staring across the table at someone else drinking stale office coffee. More likely they were on a park bench or on a walk or over a coffee or over a pint in a pub. Personally, almost all of mine have been outside of the office and absolutely none of them have been over Teams. So why do we insist on coaching in exactly those corporate spaces where people feel guarded and disconnected? Our guest today is the head of talent at LEVC, Jonathan Stanford. He's a career people leader and is particularly passionate about the effect that coaching can have on the individual and on the business at large. Jonathan encourages a completely different approach to coaching. And what I really love about him is he's taken the time to challenge some of those assumptions that sort of haven't crossed most of our minds, and really looking at first principles about how to get the most out of individuals' performance. So today's a rare opportunity to rethink how we approach a topic that's really important to all of us. I'm really looking forward to it. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the intro.
So, of all the things you could be really passionate about, I'm sure there are some other things as well, but why coaching?
I think for me, it comes down to that really fundamental thing that we all want is people to be at their very best. And coaching gives people the opportunity for them to unlock their very best rather than being kind of directed or prescriptive about how they get there. Coaching helps people find their own way and their best way of finding their best performance.
And how about for yourself? So obviously that's why coaching's great. But what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think I'll answer it slightly differently actually. Like where I came from with coaching is quite a long way back in my career. I was part of sporting with some internal coaching linked to the Olympics. And I remember just seeing those light bulbs going off when we were supporting individuals. And in that instance, it was about volunteer coaching back in the community. And the company I was working for at the time, John Lewis, put £1 million worth of voluntary hours back into the community. And there's something just about giving back that really kind of lit a fire inside me. And then during my career, I've come across different ways of doing that coaching, but it was the coaching outdoors bit that really resonated with me. And there's something about getting outside in nature that strikes a slightly different note than, say, having a coaching conversation over Teams.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And when it comes down to performance conversations, or I guess thinking outside of the box, it's interesting because so many really, really, really high performing people believe in the power of a walk. I think Bill Gates, isn't it, who goes out to a cabin in the middle of nowhere for a week just to read books and go on walks and think, and yet it feels like a bit of an odd fit to bring into something that scales across the full organisation. So talk to us a little bit about the power of the outdoors, power of is it just anything outside of the office, or is it outside?
Well, I'd love to say can have taken groups of people up the top of mountains, hillsides, recognise that as sometimes a bit of a luxury, but I would say outside of any office space or workplace, there'll be some outdoor space. And some of that is about getting off that hamster wheel. You've just walked out that meeting, to walk into another meeting room and have a coaching session just doesn't feel quite right. There's something about it rubbing slightly against the immediacy of I've got to have a result right now. Well, actually, stepping outside the office is about pace and just trying to slow down to improve that clarity of thinking. And that doesn't mean it has to be a 2.5 hour hike to the top of a mountain. It could be 15 minutes, and actually some brilliant examples of like micro coaching, which is just 10-15 minutes outside. One really powerful question to help someone stop and think can shape their performance or the direction that they go, that you wouldn't get unless people come off that autopilot of, no, Jonathan, performance happens when we're in a meeting room or a boardroom. Well, it can, but there's also alternatives to that.
I can't resist diving into this micro coaching. I think that's such a cool concept. I've never heard of that before. So is that sort of like asynchronous, or is it something you've got booked in? Someone says, look, I really want to work on this element, or how does that work? Tell me more.
I think it's capturing what the opportunity is, because it could be it's pre-planned. I would say micro coaching is almost in the moment that you see a performance opportunity to shift maybe a different outcome or a different behaviour. And that could be straight off the back of, say, a performance review conversation. It could be a team meeting where you're talking about last month's metrics. Actually, just a 10-15 minute step outside, one killer question that helps to just raise the self-awareness and instigate a bit of a change in that individual is gold for me. So it's kind of less pre-planned. It's more like spot the opportunity, and it might be you've heard one word in a conversation or in a meeting, or you've just seen something that isn't aligned with what you're trying to achieve. Try something different.
And that's right. I'm just, because I think this is cool, so I want to get into the detail of it. So let's say we're having a conversation, and I've said something that you think is coachable. Do you literally just say, actually, you know what? Let's take a bit of space. Let's go out for a walk and talk about that one piece.
It could be exactly that. And actually, when you're in a team that's been doing it for a long period of time, you might just call out that word. It might be that actually your default is just to say, this is a coach moment. And you step out and they might go, what was it that you saw? It wasn't what I saw, it was just one word that you used. Or actually, I could see that when you were in that conversation with X, that didn't seem to resonate well with you. What could we do that would change that?
So interesting. I had a meeting just this morning that would have been, and a bit of quite, I don't know, probably quite subpar coaching that I did on it, where one of my team was, comfort zone answers. I think for anyone in the audience that doesn't know, it's sort of, I guess, passive responses like, oh, it's with our client now, we'll see what they come back with, or if they say this, then we'll be able to do that. But sort of non-committal, out of my hands conversations. And then the challenge there was, okay, well, what can you take to drive it forward, or to improve the percentage chance of us winning? This was a sales team conversation of us winning this deal. But how good would it have been if I just been like, actually, you know what? This is a coaching moment, and it would be great if we just took it out offline. Let's go for a walk and have a chat about it.
Yeah, and just think like how many times if you dial that up, those 10-15 minutes, how much better that performance would be. And actually, I think in the real world right now, there's around about a 35% increase in the demand for like leadership and like coaching. And often one of the barriers to coaching is people think it takes too long, well, actually, what I'm talking about is performance. This is about performance, and just that one question could change performance. I was just thinking around that example that you gave. There's that phrase around mining for conflict, where you just push someone to pull them in. So again, you could spot a conversation as a team and go, I recognise when we came to an agreement, you said yes, but your body language didn't quite look like it was agreeing. What else is going on for you right now? Wow, now we've got a conversation that's at a deeper level, but also as a leader, you're checking in for that commitment of action and next step. So again, it could be in the sales conversation you had this morning about just checking in if there like a stretch. When I was saying about a fourfold stretch in sales target, and notice that your body language looks a bit indifferent. What is about that I said that was causing that response from you?
That's interesting. I didn't realise you were kind of allowed to call out noticing people's... That sounds so stupid. Yeah. I know, but I would never have thought that that's like an appropriate thing to say, because it's just, in my mind, it's just my perception.
Yeah. But I guess what you're doing with that, from a coaching perspective, is all with positive intent. But all you're trying to do is raise the level of self-awareness. So if you're saying to them, this is what I've seen, they can go, Jonathan, no, I was completely in agreement with you. Or it might raise the awareness so they didn't know that they came across like that, or their body language showed up those things. Again, another opportunity for a conversation. And if I think about coaching, it's like basics. I always think of it as like the best conversation you can have.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable, because what was going through my head just then is, when I think about coaching on an organizational level, I think about coaches, not about coaching as a fundamental skill set that you can inject into every management meeting, leadership meeting, I guess every interaction that you have in the organization. So where's HR and talent's role within from your perspective, what have you found works the best? Are you there as like the business coaches? Are you there as the people who find good business coaches, or are you there creating a coaching culture and an environment and skill set within the organization, or is it kind of all three things?
Yeah. All of that, I would say. All of that. I think we play a role in making sure that people are well equipped to be really brilliant coaches. And there's kind of a couple of ways that we do that. Development of internal coaches. So you've got a body of coaches that can be accessed around the business. So there's the frequency of coaching that's going on. We also dovetail it into our leadership development programs as this is a norm. It's one of the leadership behaviours that we expect from all of our leaders within the organisation. And then I guess it's about creating that environment that this is the norm, and we recognise that even though coaching's been around for a long time, it does take a bit of a leap of faith to get a whole organisation on board with that. Yeah. I think if you can provide the environment where it's like safe for people to do that, and give them the skills through brilliant coaching, internal coaches, and also set it as a minimum like expectation for leaders going forward, those things tend to help move a coaching culture forward.
So within that then, you sort of set up the expectation of coaching, just on a like really practical level then. You expect all of your leaders to act as coaches. Do you also expect them then, if they see like a deeper need with someone in their team, are they responsible for saying, I'd like you to go and see Jonathan
absolutely
about this?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really like specific need, or in a particularly like confidential space, at a very senior leader level, then absolutely would reach out. One of the bits that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and when you were saying about do they kind of reach out, is this: I would love to see coaching feature at all of those moments that matter in people's career and their work. And it was a brilliant organisation that I heard a case study on early last year who invest in coaches from day one. So big investment, but they've seen a direct correlation in their performance. And it makes me kind of think, well, why wouldn't you have coaches at that onboarding stage? Coaches like paternity, maternity coaches, mental health coaches. And there's that bit around making sure that you've got the best support at the moments that matter for employees. And for me, coaching slots into that.
Yeah.
And I love seeing and reading about organisations that do that very specific coaching.
I mean, it's so powerful, because I think you think about those moments that matter. And, I've had, I think one of the great things about this podcast, I've had specialists on talking about menopause and perimenopause. I've had people talking about returning from extended parental leave, or one of my very earliest podcasts was around bereavement, and the need for coaching just becomes that much, and just general support just becomes that much more intense. And one of the things I keep thinking about is how an intervention at the right time not only gets someone's performance back, but it also creates that sort of feeling of trust and much more likelihood of keeping them engaged in your business for the long run. So the business case is very compelling, I think, at this time where we're all being asked to do more with less, though. I wonder whether it's I think most of the audience listening to that will be like, yeah, I'd love to do that, I don't have the budget. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would work setting up a kind of internal setup where you use your, I guess, people doing a bit of like spreading the coaching demand across the organisation, if you've got that kind of culture of coaching?
There's definitely an opportunity to do that. I mean, I kind of called out like some very like specific moments, and you kind of reference very specific moments for coaching. I think the amazing thing once you've got that skill of coaching is that you can coach people on anything. So I know we talked about some really significant moments in people's lives and career lives, but absolutely, you've got a internal cohort of excellent coaches. Absolutely, they could do that. I guess in a really basic level, we're trying to do with coaching is create enough space to give people the chance to think about their challenge that they've got, and then make a change in terms of like behaviour or performance as a result of it. And those moments that you've talked about, absolutely, why wouldn't we use an internal coach to be able to do that?
It's so interesting, because if I got it right, I think the sort of purest form of coaching, right, is that you don't give any of the answers, right? You help the individual come up with answers themselves.
Yeah, I always then give the analogy of like using a tennis ball to demonstrate the difference between mentoring and coaching. So mentoring is you'll throw the tennis ball to me, and I'll give you my perfectly formed tennis ball that I've used before, and I'll give that to you. Coaching for me is that you're going to bounce that tennis ball off me as many times as it takes for you to find the answer. So all I'm really doing is holding up the mirror. I'm asking you those brilliant questions to help you find the answer. So you're right, it is brilliant questions, brilliant conversation, helping someone to navigate their own path and navigate their own outcome as a result.
So now there's this creating this culture and skill set, internal skill set of coaching, which I love. And I've got some actions in my brain off the back of it already for my own business. I guess that creates a kind of rich soil for a culture of high performance, of sort of scaling that high performance. Wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't talk about AI at the moment. What role does technology play in this? Because you talked about the HR talent team's role in it. How about AI? What have you seen in the market?
Okay, so earlier this year, I saw a brilliant AI tool around coaching from AI Structures. It's almost like the Grammarly equivalent. So if anyone that's used that, it helps you around grammar, spelling. Really important for me, for sure. So it bolts into all of the systems that you use on a normal day-to-day basis, that you're interacting Teams or Slack. And the coach helps to provide those questions as a conversation's going. So the example that I saw earlier this year was kind of 3 members of the team, a line manager, someone who just joined, and a more senior member of staff. And the coach was playing a brilliant part in terms of asking those important questions at the speed of the conversation that was going on.
Wow.
And the brilliant thing around that tool is it's aligned to the behaviours and values that organisation wants to see. So when you're trying to embed those things, and companies spend a lot of money trying to embed values and behaviours, this is giving that conscious nudge every time you communicate around what good would be.
Within the Slack conversation, or is it kind of on the side?
It's within the Slack conversation. The other person can't see that.
All right, that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
They can't see that. So it is so good.
That's cool.
And you can see in the example that I was saying, the different response as a result. And I think people know when you're in those kind of Teams conversations how sometimes overly familiar they can be just because of that form of communication, and just that point of a second to help someone reflect on whether that is exactly how they want to come across, or is that likely to help the other person get to the answer they want. I thought it was a brilliant tool, and it was a real eye-opener. You know, it is almost the opposite end of the spectrum of get people outside, create the space. This is in the moment and practicing those skills. And I guess both is doing exactly the same. The AI tool is raising your level of self-awareness. Sometimes we put messages and don't fully appreciate what we're really saying. It's about also making a behavioural performance change as a result of that awareness. And supporting people to come to their own solution. So for me, it absolutely can work. And I guess with my learning and development head on, you know, how do you ground new skills? It's frequency, like
repetition.
Keep doing it. So if AI can do that, you know, that's AI in that situation supporting 3 people in a conversation just in time is different from me taking one person outside of the office to have a coaching conversation. So there's a bit of like accessibility and volume that comes from AI. I think it comes back to what we said at the start, like spot the opportunity. When's the right opportunity to do that? And actually when is a more appropriate opportunity is to take people outside.
I think it's kind of what I said in the intro. I feel like there's a real difference between kind of skill coaching or reinforcement coaching, which is kind of more activity based, which I feel like that AI piece is really important for. And then there's a sort of who am I coaching? How do I respond to someone? What's my what are my limiting beliefs? I feel like they're kind of the same thing, but they're also really not. I don't know whether AI is ever, for me personally, going to be that person that can really hold up the mirror on some of my more fundamental beliefs. I don't know, maybe it will, but I at the moment I would see that being that kind of conversation that you were speaking about at the beginning.
I mean, why I could see it absolutely working is for like new line managers. Don't know, kind of new into this space. Absolutely, keep throwing that tennis ball against AI. That's going to help to refine it for sure. It's interesting, there's clearly never been such a high increase in the use of AI, but at the same time, the demand for training around emotional intelligence is gone up 6-fold. And for me, you can't do empathy through a screen. So that's kind of where I come back to as being super passionate about people connecting. Outdoors is my thing, but connecting generally is you can't do that same level of empathy through a screen. If we were having this conversation, it would feel and be very, very different.
It's just that split second of latency that I think gets ruined across the screen. Right, so that's interesting, because I do feel like you will be unusual in the people and talent space for being a proponent of being in person. Dare I say in the office, but where do you sit on the whole debate? Obviously, some of those we know that you're a fan of coaching in person, but how about the whole return to office debate?
It's a tricky one.
Might make you unpopular.
I was going to say, it's a question that I get asked a lot. For me, it's choice. It's choice because mandating everyone back into the office will suit some people. Fully remote suits other people. But I think the number one thing is choice. And then there's the gap that sits in between, which is about leaders' capability to manage remote teams. So actually, I'm pro people having a choice. That sounds a little bit like sit on the fence, but
does it hurt there?
Yeah, it does hurt a little bit. But no, I generally believe in that because I have a team that has individuals who love being in the office, want to be in the office, local for them, and I have team members who have family commitments who are as productive working hybrid, and then other people that also work fully remote. And then it becomes like picking the opportunity. There's some things as a team, we interact all the time via Teams, but there's certain activities that we do where we will always come face to face. And if it matters that much, and it's important enough, I would absolutely say bring people together.
Yeah, to your point around taking a chance, going out for a walk, doing a coaching activity, I guess you could do that on your mobile phones, but yeah, as you say, it's about choice, and no single decision on what you do there is going to be perfect, isn't it? So you got to pick your poison.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you were talking earlier around like how do you create that culture within an organisation. Some of it is about making sure that you've got the same expectations and behaviours in place. When I was saying around it's a leadership like requirement, we have some very specific leadership behaviours that drive some of that culture. So part of it is set the expectation, make sure we've got the support in place, but also reward people for doing that. Particularly if like coaching or a particular leadership style is a stretch for some organisations. Well, one of the bits to help people get across that is set the expectation and provide the support, but also reward people when they get there and when they're doing it frequently, like that micro coaching we were talking about.
So I've got two big questions to finish on. First of all, can you track this? Is this something that, let's say you want to set up a new coaching program in an organisation, how do you track that your managers, leaders and coaches are actually coaching?
So that's a really good question, actually. We don't overly track because actually what we're trying to do is ensure the quality of the conversations that are going on. But one of the examples most recently within the organisation is tracking the change in leadership behaviour. So before and after, a 360. So not an individual going, I'm fantastic at leadership agility. I've had one coaching session and now I'm saying I'm the best. Well, actually their teams are going to collaborate, whether that is absolutely spot on. Also the piece, and I think this is a challenge for HR, is getting really close to and comfortable using the performance data as a real driver of like change that's going on there.
Oh, I agree with you so much. If the people team started taking more credit for the performance of the whole business, I think it'd be a way easier conversation.
Absolutely. I got some brilliant feedback early in my career from a wonderful HR director who said HR needs to show a little bit more teeth. And what she really meant in there is about this commercial nous to go, actually, we put this in place and it drove this commercial output. It's something that's kind of stood with me most of my career, is making sure that when we're making changes, that we're talking the commercial language of the business. And that could be things like improving engagement score by 1% has grown sales by 4%. Really simple like metrics like that.
It's so good because I think when people are saying we need to align the people agenda to business objectives, I think that's something that people have got their heads around. And in doing the business case, they'll say, well, if we improve it, engagement will reduce attrition and people will work harder and our sales will go up by X%. But you're so right. So few people are saying this 4% increase in sales is due in no small part to this change that we did. I love it. And then I'm really into this culture of coaching that you've been telling us about. I think, well, I'll just ask you the question, right? So I would say that we have a culture we have an unofficial culture of like a lot of the coaching-esque things. Like we've got a lot of feedback, we like focus a lot on training and the sort of the right people, the right leadership behaviors, but we really haven't fostered that specific coaching culture within our organization. And I'm sure that many of our listeners today will be thinking the same thing. So for people like us, for people like me, where would you start if you wanted to create a business where everyone is equipped to have a high quality coaching conversation?
I think you've already started by just that realization that that's something that you want. I think there's that bit around setting the intention. So often people say, I want a coaching culture, and like leave it there. It's then going, and this is what I'm prepared to do. And then it's finding out what's right for your organization. So bringing in external coaches, for example, might work for some organizations, helps to raise the quality of the coaching that's inside an organization. And for others, it might be around running internal coaching programs to equip people as part of their day-to-day, rather than we're now doing coaching. It could just be in the flow of the work that you do every single day. So I think you've got the awareness it's something you want to do, set the intention, and then find out what's right. And that's a conversation. I think that's kind of co-created. Going to the team, really want to increase the coaching or use of coaching with it. What would you suggest? And trying to pull some of those ideas together and those threads together. And like any other strategic plan that you're doing within an organization, it's just think about what's the very first step that you can do. And like I say, that could be external coaches, it could be an internal program. We could be setting the expectation that we're going to have coaching conversations on a daily, weekly basis, and this is what it looks like, and giving that a go and seeing whether that works for the organisation, and then refine until you've got it exactly how you guys want.
I love it, Jonathan. That's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Superb. Thank you so much.